Hello everyone, today I'll be reviewing Yankee Doodle Dandy. So Yankee Doodle Dandy came out in 1942 and was directed by Michael Curtiz, and this film is a musical biographical film, and it focuses on the life of George M. Cohan, who was an entertainer, singer and dancer in the early 20th century, and in this film he is played brilliantly by James Cagney. Now this film actually starts off when George Cohan is a young boy and he's really cocky, and he's essentially part of this family known as the Four Cohans, along with his mother, father and his sister. But eventually he becomes popular enough in his own right that he grows up and ends up writing and performing all these really popular patriotic songs on Broadway and in the theatre, and becomes a bit of a national star. So this was the first time I had seen this film, and it was really strange seeing James Cagney in a role like this, because although I'd only ever seen James Cagney in one film before, which is White Heat, a gangster film, I'd always thought of James Cagney as being remembered for those gangster films, particularly ones like White Heat and The Public Enemy and The Roaring Twenties, really known for those type of tough guy roles. And then to see him in something like this, where he's performing and singing and dancing, it did seem a bit strange, but he actually pulls it off extremely well, and I was very impressed by how good a singer and dancer James Cagney actually is. Now, he's by no means as good as someone like Fred Astaire or Gene Kelly, but just the way that he dances on stage and in this film, he really just makes it look so easy and so effortless. And you can also tell that James Cagney really had a good time when filming this and must have really got some fun out of it. Now, we do also get an excellent supporting cast as well. We get Joan Leslie plays Mary, and she's very good, and she was actually only about 17 years old in this film, which is quite amazing, very young indeed. And then we also get Walter Huston plays George Cohan's father, Jerry. And I have to admit, at first I didn't actually realise it was Walter Huston, because I'd only ever seen him in The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and in that film he has a beard, in this film he doesn't, so that was probably why I didn't recognise him. Nevertheless, the overall tone of this film is very patriotic and very uplifting. This film actually came out, as I said, in 1942, which was during World War II, and at that time Americans were looking for some sort of escapism and were looking for something patriotic to give the country a bit of a boost, and this is exactly what this film does, to be honest. And obviously part of the story of this film is actually set during World War I as well, so it focuses on George Cohan's life from when he's young in the 1890s up through the early 20th century into the present day when this was filmed, 1942, and we actually get George Cohan talking to Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was President of the United States at that time. Now, I always found the songs in this film to be pretty catchy. Quite a lot of the musical numbers we only hear a little bit of here and there, but it was enough to keep me entertained and to keep me watching. One of the most iconic songs is Over There, which was written during World War I to really give the country a bit of a boost. And then we get this really iconic scene later on where the soldiers are marching down the street and all singing the song, and they don't realise that George Cohan is right next to them, who actually wrote the song. The most iconic song in this film is actually probably the song The Yankee Doodle Boy. I mean, actually hear this a few times throughout the film, and it's a very catchy number indeed, and we get an excellent sequence with James Cagney playing as George Cohan actually performing this song on stage, and we get this fantastic sequence of all these people around and George going off on a horse in the background and then coming back onto stage to do an excellent dance routine. And the song The Yankee Doodle Boy actually did borrow some of the lyrics from the classic American song Yankee Doodle, obviously from the title, and it was really interesting seeing this film how they come up with the ideas for some of these songs, and especially with a classic song like Yankee Doodle, how they're able to use some of the lyrics from that and incorporate it into another song and actually make it work completely and sound like an original piece of music. Having watched this, I have to say I was very impressed by James Cagney, especially we get some excellent sequences where he actually surprises people just by how good he is at dancing. We get a bit where he wants to go and join, where he wants to sign up for World War II, and it turns out that he's a bit too old to go out and fight because there's so many other younger people, but then he suddenly starts breaking into a bit of a dance and everyone's very impressed with how he is. And there was this really fantastic sequence where he's actually just walking down the stairs and he suddenly starts dancing and jumping down the stairs, and it actually is one of those sequences that looks very difficult to do and very difficult to pull off. I think if anybody else tried that, they could quite easily injure themselves and fall down the stairs, but James Cagney just managed it to look absolutely effortless, which is very impressive considering that, in most of his films he doesn't do any dancing at all, and he just seemed to launch himself into this and really help make an absolute fantastic film altogether. So I have read some other people's reviews of this film, and a lot of people seem to think that it is a bit too patriotic and it glosses over the horrors of the war. Obviously, the war being World War One, since part of the film was set during World War One. I suppose my response to that would be that you have to understand that this film came out at a time when people were looking for escapism and for looking for something patriotic and uplifting, and for this film to suddenly talk about and show the horrors of the war would probably seem a little bit out of place. And obviously George Cohan himself, this is exactly what the real person, the real entertainer was doing. He was looking for songs and lyrics which were entertaining and which would entertain people and lift their mood a bit. And obviously George Cohan was an entertainer, so I'm not sure if suddenly talking about the war and giving a real horrific view of the war would be something which would entertain lots of people, or would be something which they were looking for. So overall, I have to say Yankee Doodle Dandy was a film I enjoyed so much. I really loved the lyrics to it. I love the musical numbers. James Cagney is absolutely fantastic. He really did prove in this film that he is a very versatile actor, and he certainly made this film his own. So I'm going to give Yankee Doodle Dandy a rating of 9 out of 10. I sincerely recommend it if you love musicals, and if you also like biographical films or you're interested in history, particularly American history, then this is definitely worth a watch. It really is a fantastic film. I still think it holds up pretty well today. Some people probably won't enjoy it that much, but this sort of film is never to everyone's taste. But nevertheless, give it a try. You might be surprised how much you enjoy it. So there we go. So that is my review of Yankee Doodle Dandy. So what do you guys think? Have you seen Yankee Doodle Dandy? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Please let me know down in the comments section what your thoughts are. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.